The ancient oaks whispered secrets to the wind, their gnarled branches shrouded in the pale light of the setting sun. Shadows danced upon the cobblestone streets of Ashcroft, a town forgotten by time, nestled deep in the English countryside. Sarah, a woman of quiet determination, with chestnut hair that flowed like a river of silk, moved gracefully among the wildflowers that swayed in the evening breeze. Her fingers gently brushed against the petals of a crimson rose, delicate as a lover's caress. She wore a faded denim jacket, her clothes bearing the stains of countless hours spent studying nature's secrets. A battered notebook was her constant companion, filled with sketches and observations of the local flora and fauna. In a nearby clearing, a fox emerged from the underbrush, its fiery fur a stark contrast to the surrounding greenery. Sarah froze, her eyes locked with the creature's amber gaze. It regarded her with a mixture of curiosity and wariness, a silent acknowledgement of their shared existence in this timeless place. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the world was bathed in twilight hues. Sarah's footsteps led her through the heart of Ashcroft, where time-worn cottages huddled together like old friends. Smoke curled from chimneys, carrying with it the comforting scent of hearth fires and a sense of tranquility that seemed immutable. In the distance, a church spire reached for the heavens, its stone facade weathered by centuries of wind and rain. It stood as a sentinel, watching over the town's slumbering secrets. The graveyard surrounding the church was a testament to the passage of time, moss-covered headstones bearing names long forgotten, their inscriptions worn away by the elements. Within this timeless enclave, James, a man shaped by the harsh realities of life, navigated the labyrinthine streets with purpose. His broad shoulders and weathered hands told a tale of a life forged in hardship. He was a mechanic by trade, but his past bore the scars of a soldier's duty. The echoes of distant battles still haunted his dreams. James entered the Rusty Wrench, a local pub where the townsfolk gathered to share tales, both old and new. The pub was a haven of camaraderie, its oak beams and worn leather seats steeped in history. It was here that James found solace in the simple pleasures of life, a pint of ale, and the comforting chatter of friends. The barman, Tom, greeted him with a nod and a foaming tankard. "Evening, James," he rumbled in his gravelly voice. "Evening, Tom," James replied, his words carrying the weight of unspoken stories. He took a long sip of the ale, savoring the bitter warmth that spread through him. The pub buzzed with conversation, a tapestry of voices that wove together the fabric of Ashcroft. Farmers shared tales of bountiful harvests, and elderly villagers reminisced about bygone days. The laughter of children playing by the fireplace was a reminder that life, despite its challenges, continued to flourish. Meanwhile, Sarah returned from her sojourn in nature, her footsteps echoing on the cobblestones. She entered the Rusty Wrench, a place foreign to her, a scientist amidst the tapestry of daily life. Her eyes, the color of a summer sky, scanned the room, searching for a familiar face. James, his rough-hewn features illuminated by the flickering candlelight, caught her gaze. There was a silent recognition, an unspoken understanding that their paths had converged in this moment. Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat, time stood still. Sarah approached the bar, her footsteps tentative, her voice soft as she ordered a drink. James nodded in greeting, his eyes never leaving hers. The pub seemed to fade into the background as they exchanged stories of their lives, their aspirations, and their shared connection to Ashcroft. In the midst of their conversation, the first faint cries of alarm pierced the tranquil night. A distant commotion echoed through the cobbled streets, and the townsfolk fell silent, their faces etched with fear. Sarah and James exchanged a knowing look, their words left unfinished. The calm of Ashcroft had been shattered, and the shadows of uncertainty had descended upon the town. In the darkness beyond, something sinister was stirring, and the night was about to reveal its true horrors. The story had begun, and in the slow-building mystery of Ashcroft, their fates were intertwined, destined to unravel secrets that would defy reason and plunge them into the depths of undying fear. The once tranquil streets of Ashcroft now lay cloaked in the shroud of darkness. The moon, hidden behind a blanket of heavy clouds, cast only feeble rays of light upon the cobblestones. Shadows danced, whispering secrets of dread as the townsfolk cowered in their homes. Sarah and James, their chance meeting in the Rusty Wrench, still fresh in their minds, found themselves navigating this eerie new reality. They had emerged from the pub together, drowned by the distant cries of alarm. The night air hung heavy with a sense of foreboding as they ventured towards the source of the commotion. The town's once familiar alleys now held an air of treacherous uncertainty, each step fraught with the fear of what lay in wait. The first sight of the undead was a chilling revelation. The creatures moved with a macabre grace, their shuffling footsteps and vacant eyes a stark contrast to the living. Their inhuman moans filled the air, like the mournful wails of forgotten souls. Sarah's heart hammered in her chest, and James's military instincts kicked into gear. They remained hidden in the shadows, watching in horrified fascination as the infected townsfolk, their faces contorted by an insatiable hunger, roamed the streets. Amidst the chaos, the town's once thriving community was reduced to chaos. Homes were ransacked, and desperate cries for help pierced the night. The survivors, their faces etched with terror, fought to fend off the relentless onslaught. The gruesome transformation of loved ones into ravenous zombies was a sight that haunted Sarah and James. It was as if a sinister curse had befallen Ashcroft, tearing families apart and casting them into the abyss of the unknown. They moved with caution, their every movement deliberate and calculated. Sarah clutched her notebook close, her scientist's mind racing with questions. What had caused this nightmare? Was there a way to reverse it? Or had the darkness descended upon Ashcroft for eternity? James, his eyes trained on the undead, knew that survival was their immediate priority. He led Sarah through the labyrinthine streets, avoiding the roving hordes of zombies with a combination of stealth and instinct. It was during this harrowing escape that they witnessed the most heart-wrenching scenes. A mother, her eyes filled with tears, fought to protect her child from the grasping hands of her zombified husband. A group of friends, their faces pale with fear, made a desperate last stand in a deserted alley. Sarah and James moved silently, their hearts heavy with the weight of the horrors they had witnessed. The town they had known and loved had crumbled into a nightmare of unparalleled proportions. As dawn approached, casting a fragile light upon the desolation, Sarah and James found themselves on the outskirts of Ashcroft. Their breaths came in ragged gasps, and their bodies were coated in sweat and grime. They had narrowly escaped the initial onslaught, but the question that loomed before them was clear. How would they survive in a world turned upside down? Silent and haunted by the memories of that night, they pressed on, seeking refuge from the encroaching darkness. Their journey had only just begun, and the mysteries of Ashcroft ran deeper than they could have ever imagined. In the shadows of a town gripped by terror, Sarah and James were about to confront their deepest fears and unlock secrets that defied reason. In the aftermath of the nightmarish outbreak that had befallen Ashcroft, the sun cast feeble rays of light upon the once idyllic town. Sarah and James, their faces etched with exhaustion and grim determination, ventured further into the heart of the forsaken streets. The echoes of that gruesome night still reverberated in their minds, the inhuman moans, the desperate cries for help, and the agonizing realization that the dead now walked among them. As they traversed the labyrinthine alleys, the scent of death hung heavy in the air. Puddles of blood and tattered clothing bore testament to the horrors that had unfolded. Each corner turned held the promise of fresh terror, and yet they could not falter. Surviving was the only choice. Amidst the devastation, they stumbled upon a gruesome tableau. A lone survivor, his face contorted by terror, stood trapped in a narrow alley. The relentless advance of a group of zombies hemmed him in on all sides. Sarah's heart clenched in her chest, and James's jaw tightened. They shared a silent, knowing glance, their resolve steeling. In this new world, compassion was a scarce commodity, but they couldn't bear to stand idly by. Without hesitation, they sprung into action. James, his combat-trained instincts honed to a razor's edge, unleashed a barrage of precise shots, his bullets finding their mark with deadly accuracy. The undead fell one by one, their grotesque forms tumbling to the ground in twisted heaps. As the last zombie crumpled to the cobblestones, the lone survivor's eyes, wild with fear, met theirs. He was a man of middle age, his face pallid with shock. His trembling hands clutched a makeshift weapon, a wooden plank stained with the blood of his fallen comrades. James approached cautiously, his voice low and reassuring. "You're safe now," he said, his eyes never leaving the man's. "We won't hurt you." The survivor, his name revealed as Tom, nodded in gratitude. His words were choked with emotion as he recounted the horrors he had witnessed. He had been part of a group that had sought refuge in the town's church, believing it to be a sanctuary. But the undead had found them, and chaos had ensued. Sarah, her heart heavy with empathy, listened to Tom's harrowing tale. She couldn't help but wonder about the virus that had unleashed this nightmare upon Ashcroft. What cruel experiment had the government conducted in their quiet town, and what were the consequences? As the hours passed, the makeshift trio ventured deeper into Ashcroft, their footsteps echoing in the deserted streets. They scavenged for supplies, their movements stealthy and deliberate. The necessity of survival had transformed them into scavengers, seeking refuge in the remnants of a world that had once been their own. But in the quiet moments between the chaos, doubt lingered like a specter. James and Sarah knew that the horrors of the night were far from over, that each day brought new challenges and choices stained with blood. It was a chilling reminder that in this world, where death walked hand in hand with the living, their path was uncertain, and every decision held the weight of life and death. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows upon the cobblestones, Sarah, James, and Tom found a temporary haven in an abandoned building. Their faces bore the weariness of those who had faced the abyss and returned. In the flickering candlelight, they shared a silent moment of respite, the specter of death still haunting the corners of their minds. The night would bring its own terrors, and the choices they would make would be marked by the crimson stains of survival. In the world of Ashcroft, where shadows held secrets darker than night, Sarah, James, and Tom had become reluctant warriors, bound together by their will to live in a world overrun by the undead. As the night unfurled its inky tendrils over Ashcroft once more, the trio of survivors, Sarah, James, and Tom, huddled in their makeshift refuge. The feeble light of candles flickered, casting eerie shadows upon the cracked walls, where the whispers of the town's forgotten secrets seemed to reside. Sarah, her eyes fixed on a tattered map she had salvaged earlier, traced her finger along faded ink lines. The map, a relic of the town's past, now held the promise of a way out, a path that would take them beyond the clutches of the undead and the looming darkness of Ashcroft. Their refuge was an old abandoned library, its shelves lined with books that had long been neglected. The scent of dusty pages mingled with the musty air, evoking a sense of nostalgia for a world that had once been. James, his eyes hardened by battles fought and lives lost, kept watch by the boarded-up windows. His silence spoke volumes, a testament to the weight of their reality. The night was no longer a realm of peaceful dreams but a sinister playground for the undead. Tom, still trembling from his near-death encounter, clutched his wooden plank weapon, his knuckles white with tension. He had been thrust into a world of nightmares, a place where death lurked around every corner. As Sarah examined the map, her scientific curiosity was piqued by the unsettling mystery that shrouded Ashcroft. She had witnessed the virus's effects firsthand, seen the dead rise from their graves. But what had caused this aberration? How had the government's experiment gone so horribly wrong? Her thoughts were interrupted by a sound, a faint, guttural growl that seemed to emanate from the very walls of the library. The trio tensed, their senses alert. The noise grew louder, drawing nearer with each passing second. James motioned for silence, his fingers pressing to his lips. With a practiced ease, he approached the source of the disturbance, his every movement silent and calculated. The library's dim light cast elongated shadows as James reached a corner. There, hidden in the darkness, he found the source of the noise. A lone zombie, its vacant eyes fixed on him, teeth bared in a grotesque semblance of a smile. With precise movements, James dispatched the threat, his actions swift and methodical. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the thud of the fallen undead. Sarah and Tom watched in awe as James returned, his expression unchanged. In this new world, violence had become a means of survival, and they had witnessed its stark reality. The encounter had shaken them, a reminder that danger lurked in every corner. With renewed determination, Sarah returned to the map, tracing their escape route once more. As they planned their next move, the unsettling knowledge of the government's involvement weighed heavily on their minds. The virus was no accident. It was a result of a sinister experiment, one that had unleashed death upon Ashcroft. The trio shared stories of their pasts, their lives intersecting in this nightmarish world. Sarah, the scientist seeking answers; James, the hardened soldier guarding their path; Tom, the survivor who had witnessed the horrors of the outbreak. In the depths of the library, amidst the whispers of forgotten books and the ever-present specter of death, they forged a bond, a testament to their shared will to survive. The night wore on, its darkness stretching endlessly. Outside, the undead roamed the streets, a grotesque symphony of moans and groans. But within the library's walls, the trio clung to a fragile hope, a hope that their escape plan would lead them to safety, away from the horrors of Ashcroft, and towards the elusive truth that had been hidden for far too long. The following morning brought a cold, gray light to Ashcroft, as if the world itself mourned the horrors that had befallen the town. Sarah, James, and Tom, having spent a restless night in the abandoned library, awakened to a sense of foreboding that hung in the air like a heavy shroud. They gathered their meager supplies, canned goods, water bottles, and makeshift weapons, and prepared to embark on the treacherous journey mapped out by Sarah. The map led to the outskirts of Ashcroft, where a hope of escape lay beyond the town's tainted borders. The library's wooden doors creaked open, revealing the desolation that awaited them outside. The streets were eerily quiet, as if the very town held its breath in anticipation of the survivors' departure. Their path took them through the heart of Ashcroft, where the remains of their once beloved town lay in ruins. Abandoned cars cluttered the cobblestone streets, their windows shattered by the hands of the undead. Tom, his eyes still haunted by the horrors of the previous night, took up a position at the rear, his wooden plank weapon clutched tightly. Sarah, her notebook secure in her backpack, walked with measured steps, her thoughts never far from the mysteries that had consumed her. James, leading the way with a stoic determination, scanned their surroundings with a soldier's vigilance. His instincts were finely tuned, his every movement calculated to minimize risk. As they progressed deeper into the town, they encountered a gruesome sight: an overturned ambulance, its doors ajar, and its interior splattered with blood. Nearby lay the discarded remains of medical supplies, a stark reminder of the futile attempts to stem the tide of infection. The chilling silence was broken by a distant, agonized moan, a sound that sent shivers down their spines. They knew that the undead were never far away, their hunger insatiable, and their senses attuned to the scent of the living. With bated breath, they moved as one, seeking refuge in the remnants of a nearby shop. The windows were boarded up, providing a measure of security. It was in this moment of uneasy respite that Tom, his eyes wide with terror, pointed to a faded poster on the shop's wall. The poster depicted a government announcement, bearing the official seal of authority. Its contents sent a chill through their hearts, a declaration that the town of Ashcroft had been subjected to a top-secret experiment, one that had gone horribly wrong. Sarah's hands trembled as she read the words, her scientific mind struggling to comprehend the magnitude of what had occurred. The government, it seemed, had been the puppeteer behind the nightmare that had befallen their town. Questions swirled in her mind. What had the experiment aimed to achieve? How had it resulted in the resurrection of the dead? And what had become of the government's intentions? James, his jaw clenched in silent anger, knew that their escape was now not only a matter of survival, but also of revealing the truth hidden within the heart of Ashcroft. The government's involvement had unleashed a horror that could not remain concealed. As they left the shop, their resolve had deepened. Their path was fraught with peril, their future uncertain, but they were united in their determination to escape the confines of Ashcroft and expose the secrets that had brought the town to its knees. The undead watched from the shadows, their vacant eyes following the survivors' every move. Ashcroft had become a graveyard of secrets, where the living and the dead bore witness to the unfolding tragedy. In this world of silent watchers and unspoken horrors, Sarah, James, and Tom were bound by their shared quest for truth and survival. Their journey through the ghostly streets of Ashcroft continued, a path strewn with danger and unanswered questions. Sarah, James, and Tom, bound together by their shared ordeal, had become a reluctant trio on a mission to escape the horrors of their town and expose the government's malevolent secrets. As they ventured deeper into the heart of the forsaken town, they came upon a chilling tableau. An abandoned schoolyard, where rusting swings swayed eerily in the breeze, and a shattered playground stood as a grim reminder of innocence lost. Sarah's eyes lingered on a faded mural, once vibrant with the laughter of children, now marred by time and neglect. The image depicted a sunlit meadow, a stark contrast to the desolation that surrounded them. The trio pressed on, guided by the map that Sarah clutched in her trembling hands. It led them towards the outskirts of Ashcroft, where the promise of escape beckoned like a distant beacon. As they approached an old bridge, its time-worn wooden planks creaked ominously beneath their weight. The river below flowed like a sluggish serpent, its murky depths concealing untold secrets. The bridge was their only path forward, a treacherous crossing to the unknown. James, ever vigilant, took the lead, his senses attuned to the slightest threat. With each step, the echoes of their footsteps reverberated through the empty streets, a chilling reminder that they were not alone. Midway across the bridge, their journey was interrupted by a haunting sight. A lone figure, clad in tattered clothing, standing at the bridge's edge. The figure's back was turned to them, its shoulders hunched, as if weighed down by an invisible burden. Sarah, her heart heavy with empathy, took a tentative step forward, her voice a gentle murmur. "Are you all right?" The figure did not respond, its silence hanging in the air like a specter. With each passing moment, the sense of unease in the group deepened. James, his instincts honed by a lifetime of combat, urged caution. He raised his weapon, a makeshift axe fashioned from a broken signpost, ready to defend against any threat. As they drew nearer to the enigmatic figure, the truth revealed itself in horrifying clarity. The figure turned slowly, its face a mask of decay, its vacant eyes locking onto theirs. It was not a living soul, but one of the undead, a zombie. With a guttural moan, the zombie lurched forward, its outstretched arms reaching for them. Panic gripped the survivors, their actions swift and desperate. James swung his axe with brutal precision, severing the creature's head from its decaying body. The battle had been won, but the cost was evident in the pallor of their faces and the trembling of their hands. The bridge, once a path to salvation, had become a haunting reminder of the relentless horrors that surrounded them. As they continued their journey, their footsteps were heavier, their hearts burdened by the inescapable truth. They were living in a world where death had become an ever-present companion. The map that Sarah clutched had led them to the outskirts of Ashcroft, where the boundaries of their town blurred into the unknown. The promise of escape lay before them, but the mysteries that had consumed their lives still loomed, waiting to be unearthed. In the quiet moments between the chaos as they pressed on towards the uncertain future, Sarah, James, and Tom were bound by their shared determination. A determination to escape the nightmare that had consumed Ashcroft and to reveal the sinister truths that lurked in the shadows of their world. The path beyond the outskirts of Ashcroft was a desolate one, leading Sarah, James, and Tom into a world where the remnants of civilization seemed to fade into obscurity. The chilling silence of their surroundings was broken only by the distant moans of the undead that still lurked within the town's boundaries. The trio pressed on, guided by the map that Sarah clutched tightly. The document had become a symbol of hope, a tangible link to the escape they so desperately sought. But it was also a harbinger of unanswered questions, a puzzle that could unlock the truth behind Ashcroft's descent into chaos. As they walked, the landscape transformed from the familiar streets of their town to the untamed wilderness of the English countryside. The rolling hills and ancient trees bore witness to centuries of history, their secrets hidden beneath layers of earth and time. The hours passed in a somber procession, and the survivors found themselves in a clearing where a dilapidated cottage stood as a solitary sentinel. The cottage, its thatched roof, long since eroded by the elements, seemed to beckon with the promise of shelter. With cautious steps, they entered the cottage, their senses alert to any sign of danger. The interior was a tableau of abandonment, its furniture draped in tattered sheets and its windows shrouded in cobwebs. Sarah, her scientist's curiosity piqued, examined a stack of old newspapers that lay on a dusty table. The headlines told tales of a world that had existed before the outbreak, of political scandals, economic crises, and the lives of ordinary people. James, ever watchful, surveyed their surroundings with a soldier's precision. His eyes scanned the room for signs of any hidden threats, his hand never far from his makeshift weapon. Tom, still bearing the emotional scars of their journey, found a corner where he could sit in solitude, his thoughts a silent cacophony of fear and uncertainty. As the hours passed, and the distant moans of the undead faded into the background, Sarah shared her findings with the group. She had uncovered a stack of letters hidden beneath the newspapers. Letters that spoke of a conspiracy that had taken root within the highest echelons of government. The letters hinted at a top-secret experiment conducted in Ashcroft, an experiment that had led to the outbreak of the virus that had plunged their town into darkness. They revealed the names of those responsible, individuals who had sanctioned the horrors that had befallen their community. James's jaw clenched in anger, his eyes narrowing with the weight of betrayal. The government, the very institution entrusted with the safety of its citizens, had become the architect of their suffering. With newfound determination, they continued their journey towards the escape route marked on the map. The knowledge of the government's involvement had transformed their mission, no longer simply a quest for survival, but a mission to expose the truth and seek justice for the horrors inflicted upon Ashcroft. The path ahead was fraught with danger, and the road to escape was uncertain. But in the quiet moments of their journey, amidst the echoes of betrayal and the haunting memories of their town, Sarah, James, and Tom were united by a shared purpose. A purpose that would drive them to confront the darkest secrets that lay hidden in the shadows of their world. The culmination of their journey lay before them, an abandoned military outpost nestled deep in the heart of the English countryside. The map had guided Sarah, James, and Tom to this ominous location, a place shrouded in mystery and darkness. The outpost, a looming structure of concrete and barbed wire, stood as a testament to the military's involvement in the catastrophe that had befallen Ashcroft. The air was thick with an oppressive silence, as if the very walls held the secrets of their town's undoing. Sarah, her eyes filled with trepidation, led the way, her scientist's curiosity mingling with an overwhelming sense of dread. James, his combat-honed instincts on high alert, followed closely behind, his grip on his makeshift weapon unwavering. Tom, his face etched with a quiet determination, brought up the rear. He had borne witness to the horrors of the outbreak, and his resolve had been steeled by the need for answers and justice. Inside the outpost, they found a labyrinthine network of dimly lit corridors and locked doors. The air was tainted with the acrid scent of disinfectant and the faint echoes of military operations that had long since ceased. As they explored the desolate outpost, they discovered a series of sealed rooms, each containing evidence of the government's experimentation. Tubes filled with a sickly green liquid, files documenting the progression of the virus, and the cold, sterile instruments used in the name of science. The revelations were damning, confirming their suspicions that the government had sanctioned the horrors that had befallen Ashcroft. But it was not the evidence alone that sent a chill down their spines. It was the realization that the outbreak had been orchestrated, a deliberate act of cruelty. In a darkened room at the heart of the outpost, they uncovered a set of documents that bore the name of the scientist responsible for the experiment, a man named Dr. Nathaniel Blackwood. His signature on the documents was a testament to his role in the nightmare that had engulfed their town. Their mission to expose the truth had reached its critical juncture. Sarah knew that they had to bring the evidence to light, to reveal the government's involvement to the world. It was their only hope for justice and the redemption of their beloved Ashcroft. But their moment of revelation was shattered by an unexpected intrusion. The outpost's silent corridors were suddenly filled with the guttural moans of the undead, a horde of zombies that had descended upon them, drawn by the scent of the living. Panic surged through the survivors as they fought to escape the encroaching horde. With the evidence clutched tightly in her hands, Sarah led the way, her heart pounding in her chest. In the midst of the chaotic struggle, a gruesome realization struck. The outpost was a death trap, a place where their quest for truth had brought them face to face with an inescapable horror. As they fought to hold back the tide of the undead, a moment of devastating sacrifice unfolded. Tom, his wooden plank weapon stained with the blood of their attackers, found himself surrounded by the ravenous creatures. With grim determination, he shouted for Sarah and James to escape, his eyes filled with the acceptance of his fate. Sarah's voice wavered as she protested, but Tom's actions were swift and selfless. With one final desperate swing of his weapon, he cleared a path for his companions, allowing them to break free from the outpost's relentless grip. James and Sarah fled through the darkened corridors, the haunting echoes of Tom's sacrifice forever etched in their minds. They emerged from the outpost, their hearts heavy with grief, and found themselves in the cold light of day. The evidence they had uncovered was their only legacy, a testament to the horrors of Ashcroft and the sacrifice of a friend who had given his life for the pursuit of truth. In the wake of Tom's death, their mission was clear: to expose the government's involvement and seek justice for the atrocities inflicted upon their town. As they made their way towards the uncertain future, the weight of their responsibility and the memory of their fallen comrade would forever shape their lives. The world outside was vast and unknown, but Sarah and James were determined to face it together, to ensure that the sacrifices of Ashcroft were not in vain. The final chapter had closed, but their journey was far from over, and the legacy of their town's undying fear would live on as a reminder of the darkness that could be unleashed by those who wielded power.